So I guess we'll kick it off here because we're already 5 minutes late. Questions? Anything anybody came up with? I know, listen, I know I said I was going to go and do questions this week. It just, man, I just got busy this week. I got to stop saying that stuff until I know for sure, and then I'll just put a post up. But I've got the questions. I'll send them out tonight, maybe right when we're done. And you guys can look them over, and then we'll go live. I'm off this weekend. I'm not off this weekend. I think I'm off Saturday though. Maybe we can go Friday night. I'll try for that again, but I'll put it up for sure if we're going to do it. But anybody have any questions on Article 2, Section 1 before we move on? Or anything else up till this point? Discussion? Anything you read? Anything you read that I was wrong about? That you want to call me out on in front of everybody? Because that's cool. I'm all right with that.
I guess Josh is trying to get an audio, so he'll be on in a minute. He's trying to dial the audio in.
Oh, okay. All right. You can hear us though? Amy, can he hear us?
No, he's not dialed in. I mean, he's on the Zoom, but I guess they didn't dial in. They're trying to, I guess they're new to Zoom, so they're trying to figure it out.
Okay. All right. All right. So nobody has anything though? No, nothing from, hey, Mary McNeil's here. Another new one.
She says
David
she has
Davis?
it now. She's got it fixed.
Okay. What was it? Josh and Rachel, right? So I don't know if you guys heard me, Josh. I didn't tell your guys' story or what it is you guys do there. But Amy's told me what you do at church, and I just want to thank you, man. That's good work there. So David's not going to be here tonight. So Brad, you're going to have to pick up all the, when I'm looking stuff up, you're going to have to pick up the empty talking. Keep everybody interested. All right. So moving on, I guess we'll start with Article 2, Section 2. So you remember Article 2 covers the executive branch. So we're talking about the president, and some of this is going to be pretty timely right now for what's going on. I don't know if we're going to get to the 14th now. I mean, we're already 6 minutes past. But Section 4 is going to deal with impeachment. So kind of timely the way this is all working out. So Section 2, Clause 1, and it's kind of long. I'll read the whole thing, and then we'll just break it down. So the president shall be commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of the several states when called into the actual service of the United States. He may require the opinion in writing of the principal officer in each of the executive departments upon any subject relating to the duties of their respective offices. And he shall have power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. All right, so we'll break it down here because there's actually a few like kind of subclauses here. So the president shall be the commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of the several states when called into actual service of the United States. So basically what that's doing is making the president the commander-in-chief solely, right? The military can't be made independent or under any other control. But while that said, if you remember back in Article 1, Section 8, Congress does have the authority over the creation and supply. So while the president can direct his troops, Congress still controls the supply thereof. So if the president decides he wants to go to war and Congress decides they're not going to give the military any more weapons, then we're kind of limited in what we can do. Discussion on any of that right now? I've got more, but anything anybody wants to bring up? All right, that one's pretty easy. The second part of that is not so easy. Normally, when I'm going through Heritage,
awesome. Now it's time to bring in my team.
when I am going through the Heritage book, I'm only highlighting maybe 1 or 2 paragraphs in the entire section. And right here, I don't know if you guys can see, that is all the militia. And this is where it gets a little cloudy. And we'll talk about I mean, it's still cloudy. The states still fight this every chance they can get. So the second half of that is that he also controls, shall be the commander in chief of the militia of the several states when called into actual service of the United States. This is not quite as easy as the Army and Navy. So basically what we're talking about here is the National Guard, right? The militias, I think we already established that the militias for each state is the National Guard, and they fall under the power of the governor of their respective states. What this does is when the president calls them into service, it has to be into the actual service of the United States. He can't just call them in for whatever he wants. And basically it assures that the president couldn't take the militias away from the states, except when properly called forth by Congress. 1792, Congress passes the Uniform Militia Act, also known as the Calling Forth Act, which permitted the president to call out the militia to put down insurrections or rebellions, which is where we're at now. It was initially limited to events that could not be handled by the states themselves, and were beyond the lawful authority of those states. However, 1795, Congress passes a Militia Act, which gives the president the power to call out the state forces in the event of insurrection, but did away with the certification requirements by Congress. So we get to the War of 1812, and Madison calls up the militias. All the New England states basically disagreed with this and were threatening to basically secede. Let me see here, let me read my notes. So Supreme Court of Massachusetts issues an advisory opinion declaring that the governors or commanders in chief of the several states had the exclusive right to determine whether exigent circumstances existed for the militia to be called out. However, what that ultimately does is gives the states veto power over the federal government. Secretary of State at the time was James Monroe, argued that the militia, when they're called into actual service for the United States, all state authority over the militia ends, and the Supreme Court in 1827 stood behind him in Martin versus Mott. Joseph Story, who you guys know I love, said, "We are all of opinion that the authority to decide whether the exigency has arisen belongs exclusively to the president, and that the decision is conclusive upon all other persons." So basically, the Supreme Court has given supremacy clause again, right? That the United States can overrule the states in times of insurrection, the War of 1812, whenever the United States can show that they need these troops. Next one was going to be Lincoln. When he called them out in 1861, he called up 75,000 militiamen for a 3-month term. Governors of Maryland, Kentucky, Missouri, Tennessee, and Arkansas, North Carolina all refused. 3 of those states ended up seceding. Not necessarily because of that, but because of the reasons for the war. After the Civil War, the state militias kind of fell into disrepair. 1957, they start building them back up. We end up with the National Guard. National Defense Act of 1916 made the National Guard a component of the regular army. During World War I, President Woodrow Wilson drafted members of the National Guard into the regular army. In 1957, Governor Orville Faubus, you guys will remember this though, in Arkansas, ordered his National Guard to prevent the entrance of Black students into Little Rock High School. Everybody remembers that, right? Where the National Guard was standing in front of the doors and they were going to refuse to let the Black kids enter the school after segregation and desegregation had been ordered. Eisenhower then took control of the entire Arkansas National Guard. and ordered the Guard to obey the president, not the governor, which they eventually complied with. And this has gone all the way up until the 80s, where the governors have resisted the president. In the 80s, the president was calling out the National Guard from several different states to go to Central America. I don't know if you guys remember that or not. Because the states complained about it, all Congress did was enact a new law, or the Montgomery Amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act, which prohibited governors from withholding consent for National Guard active duty service outside of the United States. And then obviously recently, we've had presidents that have called them up for Afghanistan, for Iraq, and left them out there indefinitely. I don't know if any states have actually argued that, but that's where we are now. So this one's not so easy. I think there's probably been more pushback on the federal government over the militias than almost anything else right now. Discussion, Brad, anything? Be in the military?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that really caught my attention was, the states are supposed to have their own militia. Then the federal government comes in and passes an act and makes them part of the military on the national level. That seemed like a little bit of a conflict of interest, a little bit, because, you look in the Second Amendment, it says that, we have the right to bear arms and keep a militia. But if the federal government has the militia, and we're supposed to be able to fight back tyrannical forces, but the federal government owns those forces, it seems really silly.
I don't think they own them as much as they borrow them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but even so, I think just having that much control over it seems dangerous to me.
Who pays the actual National Guard? Is it the state of Ohio or is it the federal government?
That's a good question.
State.
It is the state?
The state budget.
However, my guess is they're getting quite a bit of money from the federal government along the way. No,
Would be probably.
I don't
would guess.
know. I'm just guessing. So is the state of Ohio buying F-16s?
No.
Oh, no, the feds supplement all of that, including their training even.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know. I mean, is it something like with education, right? Where they have no business being in education, but they're in education because if you try to get away from them, they're going to stop the funding that you rely on. So now you can't break away from them, even though you know it's wrong, because your state's educational system will be broke. So I don't know. I don't know how much of the National Guard relies on the federal government. I mean, obviously they fight it almost every turn. Like I said, I don't know if they've fought. Does anybody know if any states push back on Afghanistan, Iraq?
I thought Ohio tried to, but maybe not. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I haven't heard. All right. So anyway, that's that. So yeah, so the National Guard is all ours until it's not. Then we're kind of left, right? And then if they take away all of our guns, then I guess we don't have any militia. They mobilize the National Guard to.
So here's a question. A lot of the National Guard is now under the investigation of the FBI to find out whether there are right-leaning people or left-leaning people, and they might, maybe not be allowed in the National Plaza.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I've been seeing that, and I don't know how I feel about that, right? Because if history bears out, I would guess what, 75% of them probably voted for Donald Trump, right? They probably voted Republican. The military typically leans conservative. So, and so far, the last I've seen, they've removed 12 that they're saying had ties to militia groups, which is kind of funny to me because National Guard's actually a militia group, but so I guess all 30,000 of them have ties to a militia group, right?
I mean, I have a MyPillow, so I wonder if they'd let me go down there.
Did you just say you have a MyPillow?
I do. So I mean,
Renee, can you please remove him from the group? I didn't realize he was a racist bigot.
We have my pillows.
I used to have one and I threw it away. It was horrible. Worst pillow I've ever owned.
Yeah.
It was.
I like mine.
My God, I woke up every night feeling like an 80-year-old man with my neck hurting, and it was horrible.
Well, that's just because you're old.
Well, Well, I am old, but I think he stuffed it. I'm not positive because I didn't cut it open, but I'm almost sure it was stuffed with broken bits of concrete. I could be wrong though. I could be wrong. I didn't.
Hey, Jim,
Yep.
as of 2 hours ago, this says 12 National Guard members removed from inauguration duties. 2 of them made threatening comments toward lawmakers. 1 expressed support for Donald Trump, and the others were removed for a wide variety of other reasons.
Want to express support for his candidate, right?
Yeah,
And he's
and
getting
that's the New
removed.
York Times. That's the
Listen,
New York
you've
Times.
got, well, here's the thing. I mean, where does that end? Because you've got 30,000 troops down there. 75% of them are conservative. and
It's
they all
not
have-
going to end.
And they all have guns.
Okay,
It's
my
not going
question
to
was,
end.
I got you. Renee's yelling at
question
me.
was
Let's not get
constitutionality
political.
of it, and we're kind of getting off track.
Yep, let's not get political, but I guess that's my, I don't know. I don't understand it.
Thanks.
God, I can't wait to get to the after party. So we're moving on here to the next subclause there, which is going to be the opinion clause. The president may require opinion in writing of this principal this principal officer in each of the executive departments upon any subject relating to the duties of their respective offices. Where am I at here? All right, so where are my notes?
What do you what you think of your job?
What's that?
The opinion clause? You may require the opinion in writing of the
You
principal.
know what? Yeah, I don't know where, I thought I had written my notes down, but all I did was write down a page number out of Heritage. I didn't highlight anything. So let me read it one more time. See, this is where I would have David Davis and he'd be like, you know what? The definition back in 1547 said,
I'm
Principal-
going to her thing.
Principal officer in the executive department is the cabinet.
all right, so principal officer in each executive department suggests that there will be various departments to help. So basically what we're talking about here is the cabinets, right?
Said that.
Bill Bailey said that.
What's that?
Bill Bailey just said that. He needs to speak up.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, Bill, I couldn't hear you, man.
I'm sorry, I'm far away.
Um, So the president does obviously go to his cabinets for advice and opinion. However, there is nothing in here that is going to encourage the president to seek consensus from all department heads on any matter, right? He can get opinions from his cabinet heads, but there's nothing in here saying that he has to follow that opinion. I thought I had more notes on that. Does anybody have anything to add to that? Because I am a little dry on this one. I think I got excited about pardon power because he's about to pardon 100 people. And word is possibly that Joe Exotic might get pardoned. And if that happens, that's just going to be absolutely the icing on the cake for this election.
Crazy cats and kittens.
Crazy. If he, I don't know, if he pardons Joe Exotic. All right, so we'll move on to pardon power. Then the president shall have the power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States in cases, except in cases of impeachment, which is kind of huge. So, you know, there was talk of a few weeks ago that he was going to turn over power to Mike Pence, you know, under the 25th Amendment. And then Mike Pence was going to assume all the duties of the president, and then he was going to pardon President Trump for all of his past crimes in order for him to avoid impeachment, which as soon as that was said, it didn't make any sense to me. Well, what do you guys think? What do you guys think on the pardon clause before I get going?
It makes sense. I think sometimes we lose track of the fact that it's not just the president that can be impeached. So if impeachment is brought up against any other person in office, he does not have the authority to pardon in that proceeding.
Well, not even impeachment, but how about pardons?
Love it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You love it? Why? You love it now? Or you love it like it was written or like it was supposed to be?
In general, I think it's an opportunity for mercy, to right past wrongs. You can kind of weaponize against people that are using the political system to target your allies. Okay, go after my buddy who didn't do much wrong or these process crimes. I'm just going to pardon them.
It seems to me that the pardon power is lately, in the past few decades, if you donate enough money,
Yeah.
you can get your people pardoned.
Hey, Brad,
And
I'm
that
gonna,
does not,
I'm gonna counter Brad's point and saying, okay, why, I mean, why should he pardon certain people for certain things? If
Are you thinking of an example, Mike?
I had one in my head that like
well, you know,
evaporated.
and there have been people through history, right, that have been wrongfully, maybe not wrongfully, that have been convicted of crimes, who have turned their lives around, who are now, I mean, completely different people in prison. And maybe those people should be given a second chance. My problem with the pardon power is that in the last few administrations, at least, the 11th hour pardons that are coming down. Look, I mean, I get it. There's certain cases where people should be pardoned, but like, you know, tonight they're talking about Trump pardoning 100 people.
But where's
I don't
that
know, man.
discussion been for the last several months? I feel like a pardon should come into play where we identify, and I don't mean we by me, because I'm not smart enough always to do that. But if there's a person that's been in prison for several years for a crime that's been proven they didn't commit, that's where that pardon needs to come into play.
Or potentially didn't commit.
Or if it's right, but our science has come so far in the last 5, 10, 15, 20, let alone 30 years. And there have been people sitting in prison for
Yeah, but I don't know
dozens
if
of
it's so
years.
much, I don't know if it's so much wrongful, right? As much as it's just people change. I mean, people grow, and you made a mistake when you were 18 and you're sentenced to whatever. I mean, should they be eligible for a pardon at that point when clearly they're not the same person and they have a chance to actually contribute something to society?
Yeah, but
I think
those,
immaturity has something to do with that as well.
no,
but
those
I-
are mostly about who contributes money to the campaign.
That is what it's turned
Mr.
into, unfortunately.
Right.
And that's not,
Yeah,
would,
and
you know
I-
what?
a partisan issue.
I would just like to encourage everybody to go out and look at the pardon numbers for the past 4 presidents.
Oh, go ahead. I know you got them.
That 100 is nothing.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But I'm talking about 100 in the next couple of hours. You know, I mean,
But the thing is that there are a lot of people that have been charged and convicted of crimes that we aren't even aware of. So we think of it as maybe at a level of, you know, oh, the good old boys within the network. But that's not necessarily the case of everybody that he's going to pardon. There could be little Joe Schmo we don't know about that he's going to pardon.
Yeah, but he pardoned Blagojevich, and he was a Democrat who sold his seat and did all that crap. So who knows why he ended up doing that?
well, and there is in heritage here. The presidents have sought to use the pardon power to overcome or mitigate the effects of major crises that afflicted the politics or the political party. President George Washington granted an amnesty to those who participated in the Whiskey Rebellion. Abraham Lincoln and Andrew Johnson issued amnesties to those involved with the Confederates during the Civil War, and President Gerald Ford and James Earl Carter granted amnesties to Vietnam-era draft dodgers. So, you know, their final sentence in that, and I agree with this, is that only the wisdom and moral sense of the president can ensure its appropriate use. So,
Little Wayne's getting pardoned.
Well, that's
Oh,
the thing about
Wheezy?
You
Yeah.
pronounce it wrong. It's Lil. It's not little, it's Lil.
Oh,
I don't
You call him
speak
Renee
Wheezy.
just cleared her throat. We're moving on. I don't know if that's really what Renee meant, but.
No,
I'm sorry.
that was Kathy.
Oh, that was Kathy? Oh, I thought it was Renee clearing her throat. See, now when you clear your throat, I just get nervous. I think it's Renee and I get all scared, like I'm a kid who just got caught doing something.
In the
It's a
after
sign.
party,
It's a sign, Jim. Move on.
we'll talk
The
about him
thing about-
pardoning himself in the after party.
Pardoning whose self?
Trump.
You
He
can't
can't
pardon
pardon himself.
except in
Yeah.
case
Doesn't mean he won't.
I guess that's fair.
I'm curious
The
as
thing
to what Jeff said.
Sorry.
I'm interested to know, Jeff said, the last 4 presidents. Do you have that?
Yeah,
info?
he
I'm
has
that
curious.
info. Yeah.
I
Who's,
just
you know,
sent it in the chat. I just attached it to the chat. It's in there.
well, what is it? Where are
The
we
thing
at?
about a pardon, it's not an expungement. If you were guilty, if you've got that crime, you're getting pardoned for it, but it's not, like, people will still see that you were an embezzler or you were a whatever if they look at you.
No, when you're
No.
pardoned,
No.
that's it. It disappears.
Jim, no, you're wrong. Jim, you're wrong.
What?
You're wrong about that. It does not disappear. It's not an expungement. It is a pardon, and you still have to disclose it on any forms that inquire
Applications.
about it.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also add that you received a pardon, but you still have to disclose. It doesn't get rid of it. It just documents the president's forgiveness.
And if you get pardoned by this guy, you ain't getting the job anyway. Move on.
Just depends on where
And you
you're
can't
from.
just say stuff like that and then say move on. God dang it.
Renee's
Seriously.
gonna clear her throat in a hot second.
I know. Hold on. I'm looking. All right. You know what, Jeff? I'll go ahead and I'll defer to you there. You seem pretty sure. I was almost sure that. the
I
whole
just looked
thing-
it up. He's absolutely right. An
Okay.
expungement and a pardon are 2 different things.
Okay, fair enough.
Expungement makes it like a dry erase board, wipe clean. A pardon, it's still there, but you're forgiven.
All right. What did I see then that led me to a pardon can be issued from the time an offense is committed and can be issued after the full sentence has been served. It cannot, however, be granted before an offense has been committed. Which would give the president's power to waive laws.
Not
All
not
right.
even
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what,
of
I don't know
that.
which part.
This is just a generic definition from the internet. It says a very real distinction exists between an expungement and a pardon. When an expungement is granted, the person whose record is expunged may, for most purposes, treat the event as if it never occurred. A pardon, also called executive clemency, does not erase the event. Rather, it constitutes forgiveness.
I'm gonna post.
And there's a restoration of civil disabilities that were lifted at the federal level. But I mean, all disabilities are state deferred. So if you
Talking about
have-
voting, gun ownership, things like
yeah,
that.
that's all state controlled, even at the federal level. However, you still have federal restrictions,
May?
and pardon will lift them.
I'm going to post a link regarding the federal restoration of rights and record relief that talk about under pardons and under expungements. So I'll put that on the EDC resources page.
Yeah.
Okay.
I read that the 100 or thereabouts that they said he was considering today, 11th hour. I guess a bunch of them were being commuted rather than pardons. Like, yeah, you've done your 5 of your 20 years, and that's enough for cocaine or whatever. And a lot of people just petition towards the end of a president's term. You know, they just put in petitions and.
Well, what are those numbers?
and you know
'Cause
what?
I don't see those numbers.
But
Yeah, I don't see them
we
either.
also should add that these are only for federal crimes.
Right.
The president cannot pardon a state crime.
Yeah, listen, man. Listen, I pop you guys on disorderly conduct on Center Ridge at Olive. President ain't getting that out, right? You're going to do your time for disorderly conduct in North Ridgeville. That's all I'm saying.
Governor can pardon state of Ohio.
What about Mayor Corcoran?
I don't know. I guess he has pardon power. I don't know how that works. I don't know if the mayor has pardon powers, does he? That's not political. Now listen, now you're abusing
Move
your
along, Jim.
authority.
Move it along.
We're getting off track here.
Now you're abusing your authority. Treaty
That
clause.
was an
we're on the-
honest
I am trying to
question. That
talk.
wasn't political.
Okay.
Clause 2, treaty clause. The president shall have power by and with the advice and consent of the Senate to make treaties, provided 2/3 of the senators concur. I believe that is breaking it up on me, right? All right. He shall have power by and with the advice and consent of Senate to make treaties, provided 2/3 of the senators present concur, and he shall nominate and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate shall appoint ambassadors, other public ministers and councils, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other officers of the United States whose appointments are not herein otherwise provided for and which shall be established by law. But the Congress may, by law, vest the appointment of such inferior officers as they think proper in the president alone, in the courts of law, or in the heads of departments. The president, hold on, I think, yeah, that's it. All right, so the treaty clause. If you notice, it's allowing the Senate to be involved in the president entering into treaties with a supermajority vote. However, remember the Senate represents the states. There's no provision in here for the House to be involved. So the people don't get a say when we're getting into treaties. Questions about treaties?
Well, a question about the 2/3 of the senators present.
About what?
It says that he can make treaties with consent of the Senate, but provided 2/3 of the senators present concur. So if he gets 5 senators and he gets 3 of them to agree with him, then 2/3 present concur, right?
Well, there's no quorum. There's no quorum required. So yeah, whoever happens to show up on the floor. I mean, it's not like he goes and makes some phone calls and they come to his office. It's the senators that are there on the floor in session. But there's no quorum requirement.
Right.
So this is the
Interesting.
advise and consent for the Supreme Court that we just went through as well in this clause, correct?
Correct.
So my understanding was that they just approved these judges with barely over half. So how does it go from 2/3 as listed here to 51 of the senators to approve a Supreme Court justice?
Well, I don't know. Let me look at talk amongst yourselves.
Because I know they did that, the like Senate rules and broken filibuster and stuff like that, but that's not what the Constitution says here. So I don't know.
Well, maybe it was just because it was so important that everybody showed up. So they based their numbers off of who was there. Maybe.
Well, I read that
That's a good question.
section to apply to treaties only when
Yes.
it talks about the.
The
Yeah.
2/3?
Yes, because it's divided by a semicolon after the
Mhm.
2/3 of senators
Oh,
that concur,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
semicolon. So they have the power by and with the active advice and consent of the Senate to make treaties, provided 2/3 of the senators present concur, semicolon, and
Right.
he shall nominate. So that's only with regard to treaties.
Okay.
Oh, you're correct. And then it's with the advice. I think that's what Jeff said, right? Or somebody said, with the advice of the Senate shall appoint ambassadors, other public ministers, councils, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other officers of the United States, provided for when established by law. Congress.
Yes.
Yeah. So the 2/3, you're absolutely right. The supermajority is only when we're dealing with treaties.
Thanks for clarifying. Reading comprehension, never been my thing.
So that would pretty much open up the whole Senate or the whole thing with the Supreme Court justice nominations a month ago, or a month and a half, or 2 months ago, before the actual election. Hey, we got spots to fill. It's my duty to fill them.
Right. Oh, no, and that's, yeah, exactly. And that's what the whole argument was, right? Is that there's nothing in the Constitution that says when you're a lame duck, that you have to wait. I mean,
Right.
No, it's your duty to fill them.
Sure. I mean, he could technically today, he could bring a nomination up. Now it probably wouldn't go anywhere, but yeah, there's nothing in the Constitution that says you got to wait or that you got to give it to the next guy. Where am I here? So one of the questions that has been brought up throughout this thing, though, is the Senate their power in the role of treaty terminations, right? And the reason they're involved is because treaties are essentially law. So the framers said they wanted to keep those powers reserved to who was supposed to have those powers. So obviously all law goes through legislative branch, which is why they brought the Senate in. But now when a treaty is terminated, what do you guys think?
Okay, when we speak treaties, are we talking international or
Yeah,
intranational?
well, treaty period, but I mean, are there really, what are you talking about? Treaties with Indians?
Either way, I mean, Indians or other countries, whatever.
I think that goes through the Bureau of Indian Affairs.
Yeah, I mean, it refers to treaties, and I think clearly I think it's international treaties.
Dude, there's whole, they don't need any, they don't have any problem.
So what do you think?
I mean, they had treaties with the Indians.
But do we need the Senate? Do we need the Senate? Can the president just terminate a treaty?
I think it's written into the treaty. If I remember, it depends on the treaty, and I think it's written in there whether somebody found violating it, what recourse they have to complain or to dispute the claim.
Yeah, it's in the end user license agreement.
Right.
that you-
Is that right?
In the fine print that nobody reads,
fine
they
print.
just click the box.
So half, the one side of it sees that the power to make a treaty is distinct from the power to terminate.
From senate.gov, it says that a treaty can be terminated. A treaty provides for its termination by notice of one of the parties, usually after a prescribed time from the date of notice. Of course, treaties may also be terminated by agreements of the parties or by breach of the one of the parties or by some other means.
Agreed, but
It sounds like most legal speak and most contracts that you read nowadays.
But what we're talking about here is arguments that are still being made to this day. Just because they say that that's the rules, there are constitutional scholars out there that believe that is not the rules. And so obviously half of them say that the president, once you need the legislative there to make the treaty because you're making a law, but once you're going to terminate the treaty, that falls on the executive, who is allowed to conduct the business of the United States, and that he should be allowed to just terminate the treaty at will.
Which he did. Paris Agreement, the climate change for Paris was in 2015.
Right, plenty.
He pulled the plug on that. The Iran nuclear program was another one he pulled out of. And the one he
Yep.
made was the United States, Mexico, Canada agreement that replaced NAFTA. I didn't see anybody vote for that in Congress or in the
Yep.
Senate. I mean,
Yeah, that went through that
Yeah,
went through the Senate and it got approved.
Yeah,
Yep.
it did.
Well, the
last
Iran
one-
deal,
The USMCA. Yeah.
Yeah.
the Iran deal never went through Congress.
Mm-mm.
That was
So-
Trump.
Back during the Obama years, you sure?
It never went through Congress. No.
It only has to go through the Senate. Not, it doesn't have to go.
Yeah.
through
Well, I mean, it didn't go through any
You
legislative
know what? I
body.
feel like she's right, though.
They
I
sent
look, I'm-
they
I'm-
sent pallets of cash over there
Yep.
on this agreement that nobody in Congress or the Senate approved or voted for.
Right.
I'm looking at
I
the,
think
I'm
she's
looking
right,
at the
but I
list
think
of-
they
I'm
also
looking at the
didn't
list of
call it,
treaties.
I think
I'm
they
looking
also
at the
didn't
list of
call it a
treaties, and
treaty.
I don't see.
No, they didn't call it a treaty.
Right.
And
Okay.
that's why,
I cannot
But a
believe.
treaty by any other name, right?
It was an
Right.
agreement.
in agreement.
All right.
Yeah.
So
What's wrong with our
let me
new?
just read the alternative view here that holds that as a matter of general 18th century understanding of the legal process. So not as we understand it today, but as they understood it in the 18th century. The power to take an action, such as passing a statute or making a treaty, implies the power to undo the action. This view would require the consent of the president and a supermajority of the Senate to undo the treaty. However, they're saying that that's the alternative view as a matter of general 18th understanding, but that there's not much historical evidence that the framers actually held this view of the treaty termination. So
Mhm.
So I don't know.
I also posted a resource to the United States Senate treaties. It includes a historical overview. So if someone wants to look into more of that, there's a link out on our resources.
Historical overview on what? All the treaties that we've entered?
On the Senate's role in treaties, historical development, how the process goes, and the regional treaties.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna
I
go
think-
read it.
I think the Iran deal was considered a joint plan of action and not a treaty. There was 8 countries, one of them being the European Union, that did it, and it says ratified, NA, ratification not required. So
Right.
that's probably because it was a joint plan of action and not a real treaty.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go read it because I'll be honest. I mean, like most of you, how many of you have read Article 2 before we started doing this? I mean, I didn't, right? I just knew what the president did and I knew what I thought the president's job was. I did read some of Article 1, read none of Article 2, and I'll be honest, I haven't read a whole lot of Article 3. Now, the amendments I'm gonna be all right on. But yeah, so I'll go read it. I appreciate that, Renee. All right, so moving on to clause 3. The president shall have power to fill up all vacancies that may happen during the recess of the Senate by granting commissions which shall expire at the end of their next session. So basically what this is if the Senate's not in session, the president can make appointments to ambassadors, Supreme Court, cabinet officers, regulatory commissioners, all of those appointments. But those appointments actually end at the end of the next Senate session. So when the Senate comes back, they can vote to either keep or get rid of. But while they are out, he can certainly bring somebody in to cover the, does that, I wonder if that.
Substitute teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, what about acting defense secretaries, acting Homeland Security? Because that doesn't require the Senate approval, right?
Well, just like when Bill Barr stepped down and then his deputy got promoted, it's just acting, and then they're gonna, when Biden gets in there, they're gonna fill
But how
that slot.
long- I mean, I just started thinking about that when I was reading this. How long can you be acting for? Because it seems like we've had acting Homeland Security people for a whole long time.
Yeah,
Most of the people in Trump's administration have been acting appointments.
That's a good joke.
Yeah, you have to have somebody to fill that role, but it has to be done by the Senate. And if the Senate's not going to go ahead and put them on the floor, there's other stuff going on.
But I guess my question is, so he can put anybody he wants in there if he calls them acting, right? If somebody steps down, he fires somebody. He can put anybody in there acting and leave them in there for 2 years?
I think he's gotta at least nominate somebody to fill the position, and then the Senate can drag their feet on it forever instead of turning him down if they like.
Dude, you could be acting Bob Gibbs right now.
It'd be Anthony Gonzalez, if anybody. Okay, stop. We're getting off.
Leave the
I
jokes.
caught
to
it,
me.
Renee. Don't tell me. I caught it before you even did it.
I know.
All right. God dang. Don't get me started on Anthony Gonzalez either.
So I'm curious the language of that the president fills the vacancy if the Senate is in recess and that vacancy's commission expires at the end of the next session. So does that mean that the person gets appointed because the president appointed them, Congress wasn't in session, and then Congress comes back, but that person that was appointed is still in position until the end of session?
Correct.
Congress takes a break. Now that person's commission is gone, but there's no Congress. So the president now puts somebody else in that position?
I guess, right? I mean, if
Why
the
does he have
Senate
He doesn't
or
have-
if Congress, if Congress declines or decides they don't even want to hold a hearing on the guy, then by the time they're done, then he's out.
And nothing says he can't nominate the same guy for the acting position again.
But I don't know.
That's right.
I
So
mean, I
if
don't
it-
remember that happening. Has that happened?
If it's important enough to Congress, then they act on it when they're in session. If it's not, then they don't act, and he can appoint the same guy.
Better vacancies. Reform Act of 19
Right, like if Trump would have put in General Flynn in the middle of all his bullshit, appointed in a spot, they would have had a real bad problem with that.
Well, they would have jumped right on it as soon as they got back in session.
Yeah. I don't
But
know. I mean, I don't remember it happening. I don't remember it happening.
It doesn't say that they get to approve it. The commission expires.
Well, no,
at the end
that's
of
what
the-
happens. They come back, and if they can either approve it or they can end it.
Is
That's
there-
how it happens. If nothing happens, it will expire by the end of the next session. But they still, you have to go back to, you got to go back to Article 1,
related.
where the authority that they're given.
The loophole's been used by Trump.
All right.
So we may want to investigate the Federal Vacancies Reform Act of 1998, which is
They call it the Vacancies Act.
the Vacancies Act. If we can find anything on that other than Wikipedia, I'm gonna dig, but
Well, yeah, and for sure, and right, that's always the thing with this, and that's always what I've said. We're talking about the Constitution as it was written.
Right.
There's case law for every single thing here that changes meanings, and so
Sets new precedent.
sets precedent, right? So as you see something here and you're like, God, man, those dirty sons of, they're violating the Constitution. Well, you got to look at all the case law.
understanding the Federal Vacancies Reform Act. Okay. I'll post this one too.
If we were to go through all the case law for every single one of these things,
It
we
would
would
take us
literally,
forever.
oh my God,
Yeah.
we would still be on Article 1, Section 3.
Yeah.
I
They
mean,
don't
there's
do that.
so much case law.
They don't do that in law school.
Mm-mm.
No, right. Well, you just got to know where to look it up, right?
Yep.
All right. So where are we going here? Section 3.
FAS.org has a 36-page thing of the Federal Vacancies Act.
Yeah, I've got something on,
But it's way too long for right now.
if you
All right.
in the chat, I'll post it with the resources too.
All right. So post that, and then we're going to have a test, and whoever scores the best gets the next proposal. It's going to be a good one. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm giving away any salted caramel, but oh, I got Renee's attention there, didn't I? All
I
right.
was waiting for you to say toasted marshmallow that I didn't pick up this weekend.
I have it here, just sitting here waiting for you.
I know.
All right, Section 3. He shall from time to time give to the Congress information of the State of the Union, recommend to their consideration such measures as he shall judge necessary and expedient. He may, on extraordinary occasions, convene both houses or either of them, and in case of disagreement between them with respect to the time of adjournment, he may adjourn them to such time as he shall think proper. He shall receive ambassadors and other public ministers. He shall take care of that the laws be faithfully executed, and shall commission all officers of the United States. So, State of the Union, here's a little tidbit for you. George Washington gave the State of the Union in an address to Congress. After that, between Jefferson and Taft, it was all done in writing. They would just deliver it to him in writing. There was no address given. The public wasn't there to hear it. It started in 1913. Woodrow Wilson starts it back up, and it's been ever since, to where it's an actual address to Congress. But there's nothing in there saying that it has to be an address. Like I said, it was in writing between Jefferson and Taft. Obviously, everybody knows what the State of the Union is, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. So
Turmoil.
yeah,
Grandstanding.
yeah, it is anymore. What's that?
This is my commission as an officer to the United States by the president.
Right on.
Relevant.
It is relevant. Wait, you just have that? What do? You carry that around with you? Like if you're at Starbucks and they're like, you ask for a free coffee, and then you're like, look, man.
That's right. Exactly.
Obviously.
Is your credentials? You don't just carry it around with you? Okay.
Yeah, I carry my, yeah.
Looks like it would easily
Dan's the
fit in your
man.
wallet, Brad.
He had it all folded up like 16 times. It's this thick.
It'll easily fit in your trifold wallet.
All right, so if you read on in this, the president can recommend legislation, right? And he does that all the time. He will ask Congress to pass whatever laws, he'll recommend that they pass laws, but it's still up to Congress to pass those laws. But you see that even though it's up to Congress to pass those laws, how many times do they blame the president for not bringing something to them?
Mm-hmm.
Even though it is solely Congress's job. According to the Constitution, the president has the right to recommend such things to them. So they use that. I think instead of doing what they're supposed to be doing, they use it to blame the president for not bringing things to their attention. He's also got the power to reconvene Congress under extraordinary circumstances. Since 1797, it's only been used 27 times. And it's been used for war, economic emergencies, things like that. Last time I think was 1948 that the president has reconvened Congress. I don't know. He can also adjourn, and we talked about that, but only if both houses are in disagreement. And the reason for that is because, they were coming out, remember, they're coming back out of Great Britain, where the king would, if Congress wasn't going the way he wanted it to go, he would just adjourn them. That was it. They were done talking. And he would also reconvene them. And that was actually, let me read it to you. That was actually one of the grievances in the Declaration of Independence, is that the king has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the repository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected. So that's what they're trying to stay away from with giving him this power. They want him to be able to call them back if they need to come back for wars or for things that are important, but they don't want him just calling them back all willy-nilly for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. And also, obviously, we don't want him adjourning Congress when Congress is trying to get work done that he doesn't agree with. Questions on that? All right, good, because we got 3 minutes left, but I wanted to get to section 4, which is kind of big. Section 4, Article 2, Section 4, Article 2, Section 2, no, Section 4, sorry. The president, vice president, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. There is zero chance that we can have this conversation right now without getting a little political with what's going on. Early on, when this was brought up, the delegates wanted they wanted the impeachment to only be for malpractice and neglect of duty. But really, depending on who is in the House, I mean, every president could be guilty of malpractice or neglect of duty, right? Depending on how they felt. Well, I think that was legit, right? I don't think you can have sex in the Oval Office and, well, he got impeached for it. I mean, he got impeached.
Show me in the
No,
Constitution.
I think he got impeached for lying.
Lying about
And
it. but-
perjury.
This
And
is a
perjury.
family-friendly, family
What's that?
friendly. Please. Family
Okay, well
friendly.
then don't do things in the Oval Office if you don't want Americans talking about it.
Family friendly,
That's my house.
family
Who's in
friendly.
my
Sorry.
house doing these
Sorry.
things? Yeah, Mike. Look, Steve, it's just Steve now. I don't see Steven, and I think he must be in the shower. I think we're safe.
Gates walked away.
When we say he got impeached and, like they're talking about, oh, Donald Trump was impeached. I mean, technically though, like Donald Trump has not been impeached yet just because they said that he's not. I mean, it's
Well,
got
he
to
is impeached.
Well,
He hasn't
no.
been convicted.
Yeah, it's a two-stage process. First, you're impeached by the House, and then they go to the Senate, and then the Senate act as the jurors, and they vote to convict or not. And if he's convicted, then he's removed.
Correct.
So
but
can you explain to me why they're saying this is the second time then? Why did it not take that second step the first time, or did it? And I'm just
Well,
not
they
aware.
did. They went to the Senate and the
Well-
Senate chose, they acquitted them.
When we had
Okay.
the majority.
Yeah,
Right.
well, it's a 2/3 too. It's not
Yeah.
just
It's a
a majority. It's
Yeah, that's true.
2/3.
Well, it's
Right,
it's
but when
two
they talk
separate
about Clinton-
things. You're either you can be impeached but found not guilty by the Senate,
Which
but
is
you
what
still
happened the
have that
first time. with-
impeachment title attached to you. So there's an action and then there's a result, and the Senate is the result, but the action is the impeachment.
But now the talk is, can they do it after the 20th when the new Senate comes in? Can they do it when he's out of office?
I don't know. And I'm confused by this whole thing because depending on who you listen to, the answer is yes or no.
Right.
I mean,
I don't
see, I
know.
believe he's been impeached.
Oh, he has been impeached, but
It's
can they
just a
convict
matter of
him?
whether or not they can try him now that he's no longer in office, and I don't think they can.
But they'll try anyway and do it just to say it got done to appease everybody.
Yes.
Then he'll have to
Right.
take it, then he'll have to take it to the Supreme Court.
Mhm.
Right.
Well,
I agree with that.
the whole thing though doesn't really make sense because if you talk about it, okay, so he was impeached. That's like somebody being charged with something.
Correct.
And then it goes to a trial, which is a jury. And if the jury finds you innocent, it is no longer attached to you. So why would we say that Donald Trump was impeached or whoever, I don't care who it is.
It's
But
more
just
like an
you-
indictment.
But if you were indicted for a crime,
It's more like an indictment.
It stays
yeah,
in-
you're indicted. That stays in your record. And then you go to court and you may be found not guilty, but you were indicted.
And I think it also has civil ramifications. I mean, it can.
If
you
you're
are-
found guilty, it can.
Well, even if you're found not guilty, you can, if you are indicted, you can still have or face civil penalties.
Mhm.
So I guess the question that we
Unless
have
you're
at
acquitted,
hand
I think.
is if we have a sitting president who is facing a second impeachment charge days before he leaves office, will that, does that have to be resolved? Is that,
Well, it's
you know,
not gonna be
Here's
resolved.
my thought on it, because the things that I've been hearing is that they could never get the Senate together to be able to charge him.
Well, they're not coming, you're right. They're not coming back
So
until the
they're not
19th,
coming back together. So I think that a lot of people were
until today.
implying that because they couldn't get back together before he was out, it's just the fact that he was impeached twice isn't,
Mhm.
It's all for show.
yeah, it is.
So-
It is.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I've said all along. I mean, we're getting political here a little bit, but this entire thing is political theater. That's all it is. I mean, it's being abused. This is not what the founders intended. It's being abused. And, so we're talking about what they wanted. They went back and forth from the malpractice and neglect of duty. And they went to a broader definition of maladministration. Madison pointed out that this would destroy the president's independence and make him dependent on the Senate, which is brilliant because they realized at that point that if they were to go that route, the president would always be dependent on the Senate and would always have to cater to the Senate in order to not get convicted because it was way too broad. So the executive branch would be neutered basically. I mean, he would have no power because he would be so scared about what the Senate was going to do. And then, so they settled on high crimes, misdemeanors, treason, and bribery. But we're at the end. I mean, we could talk all night about, and we can pick it back up if you guys want to for standards of impeachment next week. There's a whole lot of talking to be done on what high crimes and misdemeanors are and what the courts think they are. And
yeah, I personally don't think we're done with this section. That's just my 2 cents worth.
let's
But
pick
I-
it up.
Let's go to 9:05. I paid for the whole hour. I want the whole hour, Jim.
Well,
I
you know
did
what?
tell Jason tonight, I feel like this is a class I can't afford to miss.
Hold on. I would also like to point out that Dan right now is getting paid by his employer and he's here. So I think if I were you, Dan, I would keep your mouth shut
I'm sitting
before.
right next to my boss.
Oh, Jesus.
With all the turbans.
We have somebody else join us now. So
Who?
his boss.
Oh, yeah. Well, too
Here
bad
we
we're not
go.
doing a giveaway.
Steve Hayes had put in one nice little comment here, but it says shall be removed. So how can you be removed from an office you no longer hold?
Right.
That's right.
Well, but there's also, they could prevent him from running again.
That's the point.
Well, on top of that, his pension and healthcare, those stop as well.
Oh my God.
Secret Service detail.
The billionaire is going to lose his pension and his health care.
What?
Yeah. Tragedy. You mean?
Did you just say his Secret Service detail would stop?
Yes.
Secret Service.
No, I find that interesting.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't believe that the
Stop.
Secret Service is just going to throw a president out there on his own.
Right.
If he's impeached and convicted, they do.
I heard reduced, not stop.
What's that?
Kind of makes
I
sense.
had heard reduced, that his Secret Service detail would be reduced, but not stopped.
Put her in here.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe, especially a hated president like him, how do you just throw him out there and tell him to fend for himself?
I don't care how loved or whatever you are as a president. If you've been impeached and removed from office, you still hold national secrets in that brain of yours. You are still, you still know things about this country that most of the rest of us do not know. You're a liability to the United States. So taking away Secret Service just makes no sense to me.
You're like, what happened in Area 51? He probably knows.
Tea parties.
Don't get Jeff started.
It'll all come out eventually.
All right, so listen, why don't we'll just end it here, but we'll pick it up. I'll do my homework, man. We'll pick it up with Article 2, Section 4 next week for the impeachment. Because I'm sure it's
All
still
right, well,
gonna be going
my
on.
lunch hour is about over, Jim, so we can end this here.
Your lunch hour. Whatever.
Dan, you're too much.
I'm just waiting for my power to go out. Power's gonna go out because everybody's here. I'm sitting around Dan's phone.
I lost my whole internet, Facebook, the whole thing. My computer wiped out for about 15 minutes earlier. So
No, it's because you come here. It's a conservative thing.
Correct.
Just kidding. Stop it. Renee.
he's not wrong.
He's not wrong. I think somebody put a bug in my computer.
End it.
Oh, geez. Here we go. No, we're not, Dan. Now we're going to talk. You know what? We're going to move on. So we're going to go to Article 2, Section 5, which doesn't exist. I'm just going to make one up.
Okay. Well,
All
let's
right,
not
so we're going to end this. Let's move on to, I guess we'll go to the after for a little bit. God, man, I wanted to go to my own page. I got so much to say that I don't even think I can say at the after party. But I'll go.
It's not recorded.
Yeah, it's not.
Say it.
Jim,
All
do
right.
you want to live or do you want to use the Zoom for your page? I guess we can talk about that later.
Well, if I go to my page, I think I can do rooms, right? On my personal page.
Live sucks.
I don't like live.
Well,
No,
live does
then
suck
no
because
one
it's
can
a-
comment.
It's
You
a
gotta do
24-second
that through the
delay.
messenger.
You know what?
You gotta
I
do
don't
that
like
through the messenger.
lives. I don't like lives because I can't start talking and everybody else stops and listens to me. That's why I don't like lives.
That's exactly why I like lives. You go live, nobody can talk over me.
Okay.
I
I'm
can't
gonna-
unmute myself.
Yeah, Renee, let's go. Let's get out of here. We're going to be here all night talking about this. This is stuff we could be talking about here in a minute.
After
All right, so
for-
we're going to pick it up. Next week, we'll pick it up Article 2, Section 4, and I'll have case law. If that's what you guys want. We'll spend a whole hour on it.
Article
Surely.
3, Section 4 recap.
Well, I don't think we're
Yeah, on
done.
Article 3.
We're not done.
Yeah, I don't think we're done. I think we're on Article 2, Section 4 for the
High
standards. of
crimes and
impeachment.
misdemeanors.
Yeah, no, we can talk about it because it's still going to be going on next week.
See you
Hey,
shortly.
Jim, I got a question.
What?
Are- is this
Marijuana
for-
possession, is that a misdemeanor?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's almost all minor misdemeanor anymore. And that's only if you can find a court to prosecute it.
but that's minor misdemeanor, but it's still a misdemeanor.
Yeah, it's misdemeanor. I mean, unless you have,
So would that be considered high crimes and misdemeanors?
no,
Misdemeanor.
you got a joint, they're not gonna impeach you. Well, they might.
Oh,
Good.
boy.
Only if you inhale.
Let's,
No inhaling.
Ah,
This is your brother. This is your brother. This isn't anybody else. This is your brother.
I know, that's why I'm saying, let's cut this off and we'll talk in the
I
after
thought you already
party.
stopped it.
All right.